The laughter wasn't loud, but it was sharp, thin, cutting. It slid across the dining room like a knife. "Seriously?" the waiter said under his breath, staring at the crumpled $2 bill sitting on the table. "That's the tip?" The man sitting alone at the booth, a black man in his late 40s, wearing faded jeans and a simple button-down shirt, slowly lifted his eyes. They were tired eyes. Kind but worn. The kind of eyes that held more stories than he ever spoke out loud. His name was Marcus Hale. He offered a small, humble smile. "It's all I have right now," he said softly. The waiter scoffed. "That's obvious." A few nearby customers glanced over. Some shook their heads. Some smirked. Some sighed like they were watching a problem unfold. Marcus lowered his gaze again, fingers gently smoothing the crumpled bill, as if trying to make it presentable, like an apology made in paper form. The waiter, Evan, shoved the bill back toward him. "Keep it," Evan said coldly. "I don't need charity from people who should be worrying about paying for their food." A few diners murmured in discomfort. One whispered, "Man, that's harsh." Another replied, "He shouldn't be eating out if he's broke." Marcus didn't defend himself, didn't explain, didn't argue, didn't push back against the humiliation splashing over him. He just nodded gently, as though agreeing with pain. "I appreciate your service," Marcus whispered. Evan rolled his eyes so hard the ceiling lights reflected off them. "Whatever." He snatched the plate from the table, the silverware clattering loudly, on purpose. The message was clear. "You don't belong here. You aren't worth my time." Marcus slowly stood from the booth, quietly gathering a worn notebook and an old flip phone that looked like it survived a decade too long. He nodded again, more out of habit than hope. And as he turned to leave, Evan muttered under his breath, "People like that, embarrassing." But what Evan didn't know, what no one in that restaurant knew, was that the man they dismissed as broke, irrelevant, and embarrassing was the very person whose signature was printed on the investment documents hanging in the owner's office. He wasn't a nobody. He was the restaurant's new silent investor. And by the end of the night, everything would change.
Before we continue, if stories like this make you think twice about how we treat people, make sure you subscribe to Black Justice. These cinematic narrations reveal truth, dignity, and the power of respect. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Now back to the story.
A soft bell jingled as Marcus pushed open the glass door to leave. The warm night air brushed his face, a small comfort after the cold sting of humiliation. But inside the restaurant, the scene continued without mercy. Evan strutted back to the server's station, laughing under his breath. "A $2 tip," he whispered loudly to another server. $2. "I think my nephew has more in his toy register." Another server, Haley, a young woman with a kinder heart but timid demeanor, frowned. "Evan, maybe he's going through something," she said. "Not my problem," Evan replied. "If you can't tip, stay home." Simple. Haley sighed and placed cups on the shelf, her hands slightly trembling. She hated confrontation, but she hated cruelty even more. "What if he comes back?" Haley asked. Evan smirked. "Oh, he won't. Guys like that never come back. They eat once every few months and pretend they're big spenders." Haley's mouth opened to gently argue, but Evan had already walked away, tossed his menu booklet on the counter, and muttered, "I swear, these people drag down the whole vibe of the place." Haley's breath caught. These people. She wasn't sure if he meant broke people, quiet people, or black people, but none of the options were good. Meanwhile, outside, Marcus paused on the sidewalk. He held his notebook close to his chest, the notebook filled with business notes, handwritten ideas, and sketches for the future of the restaurant. He whispered to himself, "Not yet. Don't reveal anything yet. Watch. Learn." Then he slowly walked down the street. He didn't leave because he was weak. He didn't stay silent because he lacked pride. He stayed silent because some lessons can only be taught in silence. Back inside, the restaurant owner, Mr. Delgado, walked into the dining room carrying a stack of papers, looking stressed and distracted. "Evan," he called, "did that gentleman in booth 5 finish everything?" Evan smirked. "Oh," He finished all right. Left me a whole $2 tip. Mr. Delgado paused mid-step. $2? Yeah. Evan laughed. It's pathetic. I told him to keep it. Haley dropped a fork hearing that. Delgado blinked several times. Too many. You told him to keep it? He asked slowly. Yeah. Evan shrugged. The guy looked broke. Probably shouldn't even be eating here. Delgado's face tightened. He scanned the lobby, looked out the window, but Marcus was gone. Did he say anything to you? Delgado asked carefully. Evan waved dismissively. Just some soft apology. You know the type. Delgado's expression went rigid. Haley bit her lip. Sir, she whispered quietly, I don't think he meant any harm. Delgado stared at the exit door, the wheels in his mind turning. That man, he said softly, wasn't who you think. Evan snorted. Oh, please. What, is he some billionaire in disguise? Delgado didn't answer, but the silence said everything. Mr. Delgado's silence lingered long after Evan's joke faded, a silence that felt heavy, purposeful, warning. Evan didn't notice. Arrogance keeps people blind. He simply grabbed a tray and strutted toward another table, already moving on to his next performance. Delgado watched him for a long moment. Then he whispered under his breath, You have no idea what you've done. He turned, heading to his office, fast. Haley followed with her eyes, anxiety rising in her throat. She knew something was wrong. Something big. Meanwhile, Marcus walked slowly down the quiet sidewalk. His eyes weren't teary. His steps weren't rushed. His breathing wasn't shaky. He had faced harsher storms than a rude waiter. But there was still a heaviness in him. The heaviness that comes when someone assumes your worth is measured by the size of your wallet. He stepped into a small side alley, leaned against a brick wall, and opened his notebook. On the first page was the restaurant's name. Delgado's Bistro, Investor Expansion Phase 1. Beneath it were scribbled notes. Employees are the heart of a hospitality business. Hidden character emerges during pressure moments. Observe staff behavior anonymously before revealing investment. He underlined the last line slowly. Then he murmured, Well, it worked. He closed the notebook and tucked it under his arm. He hadn't planned to reveal himself tonight, but respect or the lack of it has a way of shifting plans. Back inside, Evan approached a table where two young women were scrolling through their phones. Ladies, he said with practiced charm, can I start you with anything? They ordered. He smiled. He flirted. He laughed in all the right places. Because cruelty can hide behind charisma. It wasn't until Haley walked past that he dropped the mask. You see that broke guy earlier? Evan whispered loudly enough for the two women to hear. Left the tip smaller than a parking meter. They chuckled uncomfortably. Haley spun on her heels. Evan, she said softly but firmly, stop talking about him. He smirked. Relax, Haley. It's funny. It's wrong, she replied. He rolled his eyes. You're too sensitive. You're too cruel. He paused, just for a second, because the shift in her tone startled him. But Evan wasn't the type to reflect. He shrugged it off. Whatever, he muttered. You defend losers if you want. I've got customers to impress. He strutted away. The two women watched him leave, exchanging an uneasy glance. One whispered, He's kind of rude. The other replied, He's handsome, but yeah, something's off. Foreshadow clue number 1, a whisper among customers. A crack in Evan's perfect self-image. Mr. Delgado paced in his office, running a hand through his hair. This is bad, he murmured. This is very, very bad. His assistant peeked into the room. Sir, is everything okay? Delgado shook his head. No, not even close. Is this about the man in booth 5? Delgado froze. You saw him? His assistant nodded. He was polite, soft-spoken. I remember, because he thanked me twice when I brought his water. Delgado swallowed hard. He's a new investor, he whispered. He signs the checks. He oversees expansion funding. He's a reason this place has a future. The assistant gasped. And Evan? Delgado closed his eyes. Humiliated him. Publicly. Loudly. The assistant's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, no!" Delgado grabbed his keys. "I'm going after him." Evan continued serving tables like nothing happened. Confident, smug, untouched. He liked being the center of attention. He liked having the power to make someone's night or ruin it. People like Evan think the world is their stage until the curtain falls. Haley collected dishes from another table, her thoughts swirling with unease. She looked toward the door. She saw Delgado leave, fast, determined. Something inside her twisted. Something deep told her. The man Evan mocked wasn't ordinary. Marcus had only walked 2 blocks when he heard footsteps approaching from behind. "Mr. Hale, sir." He turned. Delgado was running toward him, breathless. "Sir, please wait." Marcus waited. Delgado reached him, panting. "I am so sorry," he said immediately. I'm horrified. Evan's behavior was unacceptable. "I swear to you." "Mr. Delgado," Marcus said gently, "you don't have to apologize for another man's character." Delgado blinked. "But I do," he insisted, "because he represents my business, my standards, my name." Marcus studied him for a long moment. "Do you treat all customers this way?" Marcus asked quietly. "Chasing them down the street after they leave?" "No," Delgado answered, shaking his head. "Just the important ones." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "Yes," Delgado said. "Tonight, you were supposed to meet the staff as the investor next week. I wanted a warm introduction, a supportive environment. Not this." He exhaled heavily. "I failed you," he whispered. Marcus smiled faintly. "You haven't failed me," he said. "Not yet." Delgado swallowed. "I know I can't undo what happened, but please give me a chance to fix this." Marcus nodded slowly. "I was planning to observe quietly," he said. "Watch how the team treated people. See their true colors." Delgado's shoulders slumped. "And now you have." Marcus's eyes softened. "Yes, I have." A beat of silence passed. Then Marcus said, "Let's go back." Delgado blinked. "You want to go back inside?" "Yes." "But Evan deserves to finish his own performance," Marcus said calmly, "before the curtain drops." Foreshadow clue number 2, Marcus wasn't going back for revenge. He was going back for revelation. And revelations are always louder when the audience is watching. Back in the restaurant, Evan continued serving tables like a man whose ego was a shield. He laughed loudly. He bragged about tips. He flirted casually. But every time he looked up, Haley's eyes followed him. Concerned, disappointed. She finally approached him at the drink station. "Evan," she said quietly, "I don't think you understand how serious this is." He scoffed. "What?" "Because I didn't worship some broke guy who left a $2 tip." Haley flinched. "You embarrassed him," she said. "You humiliated him." Evan folded his arms. He embarrassed himself. "Don't make me the villain." Haley met his eyes. "You're making yourself the villain." He stared at her like she'd slapped him. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," she said bravely. "You treated him like trash." Evan stepped closer. He was trash. Haley gasped softly. Evan leaned in with a cold smirk. "People like that? They dragged this place down." Haley's voice cracked. "You mean people who are struggling?" "I mean people who don't belong," Evan said. Haley shook her head. "You have no idea who he was." Evan scoffed. "What? You think he's secretly rich or something?" "He's nobody." Haley didn't answer, because right at that moment, the front door opened, and Marcus stepped back into the restaurant, standing tall, calm, unshaken. Mr. Delgado stood beside him, posture stiff with respect. Evan froze. His smirk fell. His breath hitched. His eyes widened. Haley looked at Marcus, then back at Evan and whispered, "You were saying?" The dining room fell quiet. Forks paused in midair. Conversations died. All eyes turned toward the entrance. Marcus walked slowly toward the center of the restaurant. Not imposing. Not dramatic. Just present. Delgado raised his voice. "Everyone, I'd like your attention, please." Evan's throat tightened. He could feel something rising, a tidal wave he wasn't ready for, a truth he'd tried to laugh away. Marcus stood silently as Delgado continued. There's something you all need to know. Evan tightened his grip on a tray, so tight it trembled in his hand. Haley stepped back, watching with wide, anxious eyes. Customers leaned forward in their seats. Even the kitchen staff peered through the service window. Delgado exhaled slowly. Then he said, "This man is not who you think he is." And in that moment, Evan's entire world began to crack. The room fell into a deeper silence than any Marcus had felt all night, a silence that pressed against the walls, a silence that made the air feel heavy, a silence that made each breath sound like confession. Delgado's voice trembled ever so slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of truth he was about to release. "This man," he paused, "is the reason this restaurant is still standing." A soft ripple of murmurs swept through the tables. Evan blinked, twice, as if trying to clear smoke from his vision. What's he talking about?" Evan muttered under his breath, but his voice didn't sound confident anymore. It sounded small, thin, like it was losing its shape. Delgado continued, louder now. "He is the person whose investment is funding our expansion, whose approval determines the future of every job here, including mine." A gasp, not from one person, from several. Haley covered her mouth slowly. Her eyes glistened. "Evan?" Evan felt the floor tilt beneath him. "No," he whispered. No, that can't." Marcus remained silent. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He didn't bask in the moment. He simply watched. And that unnerved Evan more than anything else. Delgado turned to Marcus. "Sir, would you like to address the staff?" Marcus looked around the room, from the cooks to the servers, to the clusters of curious customers. His gaze finally landed on Evan. The waiter tried to straighten his posture, tried to swallow his panic, tried to rebuild what was crumbling inside him, but the truth was already cracking through. Marcus stepped forward. His tone was gentle, measured, quiet, but quiet words have the most devastating precision. "I wasn't planning on revealing myself tonight," he began. "My goal was simple, to observe how people treat others." His eyes stayed locked on Evan, especially when they believe no one is watching. A shiver ran across the dining room. Marcus continued, "In hospitality, every guest deserves respect, regardless of appearance, financial status, or tip amount." Evan's face flushed, red, then pale, then a sickly shade in between. Marcus took a soft breath. "And yet tonight, I was treated as though my worth was measured by what you could see." He didn't raise his voice. He raised the truth. "Each word you spoke," Marcus said quietly, "made this room smaller." No one moved. No one blinked. Marcus turned slightly, addressing the entire restaurant. "Dignity is not something you give to people you think are important. It's something you give to everyone because everyone is important." A woman at a nearby table nodded slowly, her eyes misting. A young man near the entrance whispered, "Wow." But Evan felt something breaking under the weight of those quiet words. He stepped forward suddenly. I didn't know who you were," he blurted out. "You came in dressed like..." Marcus raised a hand softly. "Like someone who mattered less?" The room trembled with that question. Evan stammered. "I didn't mean I thought..." Marcus spoke gently. "You thought you could decide who had value." Evan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus wasn't angry. He wasn't unkind. He wasn't vengeful. He was simply honest, and honesty is the sharpest mirror. Haley stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Sir, I am so sorry," she said, voice breaking. "I tried to stop him." Marcus offered her a reassuring nod. "You showed kindness," he said, "and kindness always shows." Haley's expression softened. She exhaled shakily, relief washing over her. Then Marcus turned back to Evan. "You said earlier that I didn't belong." He paused. "And you're right." Evan's eyes widened. Marcus continued, "I don't belong in any space where people are measured by what they can give rather than who they are." The dining room exhaled as one. That's why I invest in places that believe in people, he said softly, not places that break them. Evan's breath caught. No, please, I can change. I swear I can. Please don't. Don't fire me. Don't. Marcus looked at him calmly. I haven't made any decisions about your job, he said. That's for Mr. Delgado to determine. Evan turned to Delgado desperately. Sir, please, I need this job. Before Delgado could speak, Marcus lifted a hand. But I have made a decision about one thing. The silence grew thick again. Tighter, heavier. Marcus stepped closer to Evan, not intimidating, just present. Character, he said softly, is revealed in how we treat people, especially when we believe they have nothing to offer us. A long pause. Then, in a voice soft enough to be calm, but firm enough to be final, and tonight, your character revealed itself. Evan felt the words like cold water. Not shouted, not weaponized, just true. He took a shaky step back, bumping into a chair. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm really, really sorry. Marcus nodded gently. I hope you mean that, he said, because apologies without change are just words. The restaurant remained still. No one dared disrupt the moment. Then, softly, steadily, Marcus turned to Delgado. I would like to speak with your staff privately, he said. With your permission. Delgado nodded immediately. Yes, of course. Whatever you need. Marcus offered a faint, reassuring smile. Thank you. He then turned back to the dining room. To everyone here, thank you for your patience. Your meals will be on the house tonight. Gasps, smiles, surprised murmurs. Marcus added, and I hope the rest of your evening is filled with kindness. The room erupted with applause. Not loud, not chaotic. Gentle applause. The kind given when people witness a quiet truth unfold. Marcus stepped past Evan without a glare, without judgment. But Evan felt judged anyway. Not by Marcus, by his own reflection in Marcus's silence. As Marcus walked with Delgado toward the staff hallway, something inside the young waiter finally cracked. He whispered to himself, What have I done? The hallway behind the dining room was narrow and dim, lined with framed awards and faded staff photographs. But tonight it felt like a tunnel, one that Evan was walking down with no clear exit. Marcus stood quietly near the break room door, Delgado beside him, his hands clasped in front of him. Haley and two other servers hovered close by, uncertain whether to stay or go. Then Evan appeared. He moved slowly, like a man approaching a verdict. His eyes were red, but not from anger, from realization. Sir, he said softly. Marcus looked up at him with an unreadable calm. Evan swallowed. I messed up. I know that now. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I shouldn't have spoken to anyone like that. A shaky breath. I don't have an excuse. Marcus said nothing yet. He simply waited, and that patience was more intimidating than any raised voice. Evan continued. I was frustrated. It was busy. Tips have been down. Rent is due. But none of that justifies how I treated you. His voice cracked. I'm ashamed. I really am. Delgado stepped forward, but Marcus raised a quiet hand, signaling him to wait. Marcus then spoke, his tone measured. Evan, what exactly are you ashamed of? Evan blinked, thrown off. I talked down to you. I judged you. I assumed things because of how you looked. Marcus nodded slowly. And I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. A long silence stretched between them. Marcus took a calm breath. Evan, I am not the first person you've treated this way. Am I? The question landed harder than anything before. Evan's shoulders sank. No, sir. Do you know how many? Evan shook his head helplessly. I don't know, but too many, more than I want to admit. Marcus studied him quietly. You called me a burden, he said softly. You said I didn't belong. You dismissed me before I even spoke. I know, Evan whispered. Why? Marcus asked. Evan hesitated. Then he finally said the words he had buried deep. Because I felt powerless. I thought looking down on people made me feel stronger. His lip trembled. It doesn't. It just makes you smaller. Haley sniffed quietly behind him, emotional. Marcus's voice softened even more. Pain is not permission to hurt others, and insecurity is not a license to take dignity away. Evan nodded weakly. Yes, sir. Marcus continued. Tonight, you treated someone you believed was helpless, disposable, unimportant. But what if I wasn't the investor? What if I truly had nothing? Would that make your actions any less wrong? Evan's voice cracked. No, sir, it wouldn't. Marcus took one step closer. You don't need to apologize to me because I am one of the investors, he said softly. If your apology depends on someone's status, then it's not an apology. It's a calculation. Evan lowered his head. I know, he whispered. You're right. The hallway fell silent again. Then Marcus turned to Delgado. Mr. Delgado, has Evan ever been warned for this behavior? Delgado nodded solemnly. Yes, twice documented. Several times verbal. Evan shut his eyes. That truth hit him like a cold wind. Marcus looked at the young waiter again. You said you wanted to change. I do. Evan said quickly, tears forming again. More than anything. Marcus considered him quietly. I believe people can change, he said, but change requires consequence. Evan braced himself. Am I being fired? He whispered. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Delgado did. Evan, based on protocol, yes, you're being let go. Evan's breath caught, sharp, painful. It was the sound of a last chance slipping through his fingers. He nodded slowly. I understand, he said. I guess I earned that. Marcus stepped closer. I didn't ask Mr. Delgado to fire you, he said gently. This is his decision as a manager. Evan nodded again. Tears now began to fall, not dramatically, but quietly, like regret forming into shape. Marcus continued. But my decision is about what comes after. Evan's eyes lifted, confused and desperate. Marcus spoke softly. I don't condemn people for their worst moment, and I don't judge a person by the one day they fail, but by the days they choose to stand back up. Evan inhaled sharply. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card, a business card. My foundation runs character and service reform programs, he explained, for people who need a new start and are willing to do the work. He extended the card. I want you to join the next session. Evan stared at it. His jaw trembled. His hand shook. You do that? After how I treated you? Marcus nodded. Yes, because punishment alone doesn't change people. Opportunity does. Evan reached for the card, holding it as though it were something fragile. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you so much. I won't waste this, sir. I promise you, I will not waste it. Marcus gave a faint smile. I hope you keep that promise, not for me, but for the people you serve. Evan exhaled shakily, then wiped his tears and stepped back. Delgado placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. You can collect your things after your exit interview, he said gently. Evan nodded. I understand. And good luck, Mr. Blackwood, he said softly to Marcus. Thank you for giving me more than I deserved. He walked down the hallway slowly, not defeated, but humbled. A different man than the one who had laughed at Marcus earlier. Marcus turned to the rest of the staff in the hallway. His voice remained warm, quiet. I didn't come here tonight to catch anyone, he said. I came to understand, to observe, to learn. Haley stepped forward again. Sir, I hope we made you proud, at least a little. Marcus smiled. You made me hopeful. Haley's eyes shined. Marcus continued. This restaurant has potential. It has charm. It has heart. But heart only works when everyone treats each other with respect, from the highest position to the lowest. The staff nodded in agreement. Marcus then turned to Delgado. I believe in your leadership, he said, and I believe you'll make the restaurant a place where dignity is the standard, not the exception. Delgado nodded deeply. I will, sir, and thank you for trusting us. Marcus checked his watch. Well, I think I've caused enough excitement for one night, he said. If it's all right, I'd like to leave quietly. Delgado smiled. Of course. And thank you again, sir. Truly. Marcus shook his hand gently. Then he picked up his coat, straightened it, and began walking toward the exit. But before he rounded the corner, a voice called from behind. "Sir." It was Haley. Marcus turned. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the bill, not for the speech, but for reminding all of us what kindness should look like." Marcus smiled gently. "I didn't remind you," he replied softly. "You already knew." Then he stepped outside into the cool night air, and as the door closed behind him, the quiet truth he had left in that room continued echoing through every heart it had reached. The night outside was quiet in a way the world rarely is, soft, unhurried, almost reflective. The streetlights formed golden halos on the pavement as Marcus stepped away from the restaurant entrance, his footsteps slow, steady, unbothered. He didn't look back immediately, not because he was angry, not because he was above them, but because he wanted them to face who they were, without needing his eyes on them. Change doesn't happen under supervision. It begins when the lights dim and the truth sinks in. Marcus breathed in the cool air, letting the tension of the evening settle behind him. He took 2 steps forward, and then paused, not because of doubt, but because of clarity. He turned, just slightly, looking back through the large front windows. Inside, the staff was still standing together, Delgado speaking quietly, Haley wiping her eyes. The other servers gathered in a close semicircle as if absorbing the aftermath. Something about it touched him in a way he didn't express often, because Marcus knew something they didn't. People were not defined by their best days or their worst ones. They were defined by what they chose to do after they knew better. And tonight, many people had learned something about respect, about humility, about dignity, about the way small actions echo larger truths. Marcus turned fully and continued down the sidewalk. The night air felt cleaner, lighter, almost new. He walked for half a block before hearing the restaurant door open behind him. Footsteps followed quickly, hesitantly. "Sir, wait, please." He stopped, and when he turned, he found Haley jogging toward him, out of breath but determined. Marcus met her halfway. "Everything all right?" he asked. She nodded, though her eyes were wet. I needed to say one more thing," she said. Marcus waited, gentle but patient. "I know tonight was hard, but you didn't embarrass anyone. You gave everyone a chance to see themselves honestly." Her voice shook. "I just want you to know, your kindness meant something. To me, to all of us." Marcus gave a soft smile. "Kindness is like light," he said. "It doesn't disappear when people close their eyes. It waits for them to open them again." Haley swallowed the lump in her throat. Is there anything we can do to be better?" she asked quietly. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said. 3 things. Haley listened carefully. "First," Marcus said, "treat every customer, every person, as if they matter, because they do." She nodded quickly. "Second, speak up when you see unfairness. Silence protects harm." Another nod, firmer. "And third," Marcus added softly, "never forget that humility builds more character than pride ever will." Haley exhaled a long, emotional breath. "Thank you," she whispered. "Really." Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Take care of yourself, Haley," he said. "You have a good heart. Don't let the world harden it." She wiped her eyes and gave a trembling smile. "Yes, sir." Marcus nodded, turned back toward the street, and finally walked away, this time uninterrupted. The restaurant door closed behind her, but Haley felt different now, as though she had witnessed something important, something that would stay with her. Back inside, the staff was still gathered, discussing the night, processing from their own perspectives. The story would spread, quietly, respectfully, not as gossip, but as a lesson. And Evan sat in the break room, staring down at the business card Marcus had given him. His face was streaked with tears, not of self-pity, but of realization. His hands trembled as he read the foundation name again, mouthing the words silently, "Reform with dignity." He smiled weakly through the sting in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt something like hope, not comfort, not escape, but the opportunity to build something better from the ashes of what he had been. He folded the card carefully, placed it in his wallet, and whispered, "I won't waste this." Meanwhile, Marcus walked beneath a streetlight where the glow softened the edges of the night. He pulled out his keys, unlocked his car, and paused for a final moment of quiet reflection before he opened the door. Tonight hadn't been about proving power. It hadn't been about exposing arrogance. It hadn't been about status. It had been about humanity, about the truth others often forget. Dignity does not come from status. Status does not determine worth. And worth is never measured by appearance. Marcus took a slow breath, letting that truth settle into the night. Then he opened the door and sat inside, closing it gently behind him. As the engine hummed softly, Marcus looked through the windshield at the restaurant one more time. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He simply breathed, deep, meaningful, present. A moment of silent gratitude that the world, broken as it was, still held room for change. Then he whispered a quiet reflection into the empty car. People don't always remember the lessons you teach, but they never forget the way you made them feel. The headlights cut through the night as Marcus pulled away, leaving behind a restaurant that would never operate the same way again. Not because of fear, not because of discipline, but because someone walked in with humility, endured humiliation with grace, revealed truth with dignity, and left behind a mirror for everyone to face themselves. That night, the staff learned something profound. You never know who you're serving. You never know who you're speaking to. And you never know who might be watching the way you treat others. Respect costs nothing, but it changes everything.
If this story reminded you of the importance of dignity, kindness, and justice, don't just watch. Share it. Speak about it. Stand for it. And remember, every act of respect is a step toward a better world. Make sure you subscribe to Black Justice. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here,